NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast, Rutgers Rant, our picks pod. Hey, fellas, look, I got to tell you something. We were a little dark on Monday, and that's understandable. I get it. But my mood has improved dramatically as I'm thinking about, hey, we're going to California. We might be going to California with an aching in your heart. That's a little reference that I think Pat might get. But this is exciting. We're going to forget the results. We're going to the LA Coliseum, USC, Tommy Trojan, Santa Monica. I mean, come on, In and Out. You guys ever have In and Out?
World Series.
In and Out.
I've never had
In and Out. No,
I've never had In and Out. I'm very excited to try it and see if it really is as overrated as everyone else says it is.
Yeah, I don't know about overrated. It's good like once a year. It's good. Like I don't think I need one here, in Route 3, but I like a good In and Out. Pat, never had it.
Solid.
You don't want to have it twice in the same trip because the out becomes the key word there in and Out. Just take my word on that.
We can eat clean in California. How about that?
Eat clean on the road in California. Where you guys staying? Not the Heldrich Hotel. I know there's no Heldrich in California, but it's better than say Lincoln for hotels.
Definitely easier to get to.
Definitely easy to get to.
I'm staying in Culver City, which I think is by Santa Monica. So I might take a walk around the pier, nice. And then I joked around about leaving. The game starts at 8, so you want to be there around 5. So I'll probably leave my hotel around 1 to beat the traffic.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. I saw that the tweet you sent us, Pat. What's going on there other than the Dodgers, Yankees? It's just the
Dodgers, Yankees, the Lakers play, USC plays. David Gilmour is playing at the Clippers Arena.
Clippers
and then
Arena.
There are two huge
breaking
high
news
school
in that
football games too.
Is that right? Where are they playing?
They're playing at SoFi.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like unbelievable.
Yikes.
Gridlock city in LA.
Ooh, it's modern day St. John Bosco, which is like Bergen Bosco on steroids.
Yes.
Like 50% of all Division 1 players come out of those two schools. It's insane how much talent is in those two programs. Which I guess we can use this as a way to get into the USC. Apparently, there's a story in the OC Register that Lincoln Riley and the USC staff just stopped showing up to modern day in St. John Bosco. It's like you have this talent factory like a couple miles from your campus, and they showed up one time since the spring. That's unbelievable to me. And maybe that's why they're very talented, but maybe that's why they're disappointing this season.
Yeah, that's a good transition. What the hell is going on with Southern Cal? I mean, 3-4. Lincoln Riley, the seat could not be much hotter from what I've understood. I mean, the best thing that's happening to Lincoln Riley is the Dodgers at this point, because all of the columnists and all the resources are being dedicated to cover that team. But man, what is the problem?
So you're saying columnists cover baseball in California?
That's beautiful. I love it. It's a good singer. It got me there. Yes.
Gotcha. I think Lincoln Riley has been an absolute disaster for USC. It's obvious when you listen to his press conferences. He's adversarial. He's reluctant to change. And he had Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and they were still a mediocre team. Vowed to fix the defense, brought in DeAnton Lynn from UCLA. It's been better, but still gave up over 350 yards passing to Maryland last week. It's not a good situation at all. And I believe it's all on the head coach.
It always is, right? The biggest issue is they just can't close games, which is that's a broad thing. There's a lot of things going on, but they just cannot win these games, these close games down the stretch. They keep losing on the road. They've lost now at Minnesota, and they lost at Maryland. 2 wins that USC of old should win by double digits, right? It's if you want to be one of the top 3 teams in this league, you got to win those games comfortably. And I don't think it's talent because it's USC. They're filled with talent. You watch that when they beat LSU at Las Vegas to start the season. They looked awesome. Their wide receivers were unbelievable. So it's got to be coaching to some extent. And it's got to be not just even X's and O's, but some sort of motivational thing, focus thing. There's just something clearly missing there that they can't connect the talent they have to being able to just win these games. USC should never be 3-4, and it should not be 3-4 when it has Lincoln Riley, allegedly one of the best coaches in the sport, making so much money that you and all three of us could live 100 lifetimes and we never sniff that money, which I think is why he should be on the hot seat. I don't think he is on the hot seat because, I guess they have a lot of money in LA, but I don't know if they're going to want to pay him $70 million or whatever he's owed if they want to fire him. So I think that's the only thing saving his behind, because he probably should be fired.
Is this proof, and this is, obviously coming from our vantage point here, that maybe the idea that NIL is the end all be all, that you can't put together a team as quickly as people like to believe with NIL? Like, is this evidence, or is this just an outlier where you just kind of have to blame other factors, you think?
Listen, I don't think you can create an elite team without NIL. I don't, because NIL is absolutely necessary to collect the level of talent you need to be elite in the sport.
Agreed.
Indiana got a lot of NIL. They put together a really strong team in Kurt Cignetti's first year. But there's the opposite coin where you have USC, you have Florida State, these programs who have enormous war chests and get very talented teams, and things just don't work. And because of other factors, right? Just because you have all the talent, you still have to coach it and create a program that can win with that talent. But I will say that, again, to be elite, to be a really good team, it starts and ends with the amount of NIL you have and how much talent you get. So I think this is just this is an example of coaching botching a good talented team, whereas a lot of teams are having to use coaching to elevate a team that's not as talented.
Do you think they're quitting, Pat? Is that what's happening as well? You think this is they're about to pull the plug on this thing?
I think last year was very evident that USC wanted nothing to do with playing football. I don't think that's the case just yet, because you do see some flashes. There are, like, the defense does still have some life. The offense has these great skill position players. So I don't know if it's quit. I asked Greg Schiano what happens in these late game scenarios to USC. Obviously, he didn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, and said, contradicting that statement and saying, well, there are two teams on the field. So instead of USC botching the field goal attempt, that was really Maryland blocking the field goal. That's why that game was won, which, yeah, all right. There are two teams on the field. I get the point. Right. But you think about the Penn State game, they were up 18 points, or they were up big at the half. Let that game get away. Minnesota, just not good execution. It just really comes down to execution. And it's if you want to put it in Rutgers terms, think of the Nebraska game and all the things that went wrong for Rutgers against Nebraska. That's kind of what you see in a lot of USC games. And that is a reflection of the program as a whole. Just not doing the little things and the fundamentals right.
Yeah, it's sort of fascinating. I read a story about Miller Moss and how he is, they're talking about benching him. And if you just look at the stats coming from our perspective here with quarterback play, almost 2,000 yards, 65% completion, 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Like, oh yeah, let's put him on the bench, right, fellas? It's like, good grief. And I get it that it seems like their problems are more related to the offensive line and certainly not having talent at receiver. Jacoby Lane, my gosh, Kyron Hudson, these guys are good. I mean, they've got some talent.
Yeah. And that Branch kid is one of the most athletic, speedy kids that I've seen play this whole year. Like, makes unbelievable catches. So, I mean, if Rutgers had a hard time keeping up with UCLA, those three guys are just absolute burners.
All right.
USC and Lincoln Riley teams are very quarterback dependent. They throw so you remember last year how Rutgers ran the ball 60% of the time or whatever? Like, that was the big focus of the offense. That's essentially the reverse for USC. They pass the ball 61% of the time. That's 5th nationally. So the stats are high, right? But that's because they chuck the ball all over the yard. He's thrown an interception 5 straight games. So that's kind of probably making people pull some hair out. But I agree. I think the standard at USC for a quarterback is a little higher than it is in Piscataway. On the quitting thing, I think it is interesting. I don't think either of these teams have quit. I think this game could be determinant for either, because USC at 3-5, that's quit city. Even if you get 7-5, you're USC. That's a lost season, right? That's I could see all of these guys just throwing in the towel. With Rutgers, again, I asked Greg Schiano this. He did not really address the question either. But they're going to be 4-4 if they lose this game at the bye week. 4-4 at a season where it was supposed to be this breakout year. You bring back a team full of seniors, right? For one last year before going off to the NFL. Are these guys going to want to continue to risk their bodies and not look ahead to the NFL with 4 games left when they're 4-4? I don't know that, but I think that's legitimately a concern and something to think about because, I don't think Kyle Monangai, we've talked about this. Kyle Monangai is a kid who it doesn't matter. I mean, he, almost got speared on the field on Saturday and kept playing. But I don't know. I just think it's something to think about why this game is so important for Rutgers, not just for the win, but to kind of keep momentum alive for the fans and for the players.
Right. The quote that comes out to me in that press conference, other than talking to you about his grandma, the quote to me was just about him making decisions about whether or not these guys are going to play hurt. And at a certain point, it ain't going to be him making the decision. It's going to be them, I would think. And that to me is pretty, that's going to be what happens here. You wonder how many of these guys, if they can't play up to their level, if Robert Lungerbeam was really hurt and he can't make a tackle, and now he's putting himself on film where he looks bad trying to bring down a guy without wrapping his arms around him. You wonder, like, how often is it fair to them? And it's a very interesting question. Like, I don't blame a guy. You don't want to say, okay to quit, but I don't blame a guy who's hurt, who's looking toward his future, who has to see like what's going to happen in the next level for him. And yeah, I mean, that's part of this.
Is it worth sacrificing to, at best, get to 8-4? That is the ultimate question. For some guys, for most guys, probably it will be. At least, the next couple games. But I think it's certainly a question that will at least come into their mind if they're 4-4 at the bye week.
Yep. All right. Anything else that we need to talk about with USC? They don't run the ball a lot. Their defense, is Rutgers going to be able to? I mean, Maryland got 350-yard passing. Rutgers is coming off of a pretty good game offensively. It's so weird that we're thinking maybe Rutgers will beat USC in a shootout. Like this is just kind of like my head explodes thinking about it. But I wonder, like, is that their best chance here? Because I really do not see Rutgers shutting down this passing attack.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is going to end up having to be a through the air shootout. The USC passing defense numbers are not great, and Rutgers did a pretty good job against the not bad defense, right? So. Certainly, I think it'll be an opportunity for Ethan Kalik-Manis and the young wide receivers to take another step forward. I don't think this is going to be a 14-7 barn burner. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive into some news. The Adidas news of the week. Brian, why don't you explain to us what happened with the apparel contract? Are Rutgers going to have uniforms for this game? What is the latest with that one? Because I think in industry wide that it was probably something that made some interesting headlines.
Yeah, this has been kind of building throughout the offseason and kind of hit a crescendo on last week when Rutgers played their exhibition against St. John's on national television. They're an Adidas school, and the top 2 players that have ever stepped foot on campus are both wearing Nikes, and that catches the eyes of a lot of people. And we have been kind of monitoring this for months and kind of been preparing for this and doing some reporting. So here's what I know for a fact. Rutgers' 6-year deal with Adidas, they signed in 2017, expired on June 30th of 2023. It expired. Rutgers never renewed that contract. Pat Hobbs told us and the rivals in March that they agreed in principle to extend the deal. That never happened, right? Rutgers has been in.
Do we know why?
I don't know why. I don't know why for a certain fact. I think very clearly someone, and I guess we can kind of figure out who to point the finger at ultimately, either just kept kicking the can down the road, right? To me, I could be wrong. I probably have not done enough research on this. I don't know how many athletic departments just kind of string along with a former, partner for a year and a half without a contract. I just don't understand why there would not be a contract. And if there's not a renovation of a contract, why there aren't requests for proposals for other companies to get a new contract. Rutgers sent out requests for proposals to new teams, I should say new apparel companies on October 1st, 2 months into the 2024-25 academic year, and a month before the start of the most anticipated sports season at Rutgers for men's basketball in its history, right? Again, with 2 top players wearing a different company than your sponsor. The whole thing, again, we don't know all the details, all the play-by-play and all this stuff. I could say, from my opinion, the whole thing is a mess. It might actually work out for Rutgers, right? Because it didn't have a contract with Adidas, there's nothing for Adidas to enforce. They couldn't fine Rutgers for having these 2 kids wear Nike because there's no contract to enforce. So that ultimately might work out for Rutgers, but just because the end result isn't catastrophic doesn't mean that the whole process is very clearly
Yeah.
a disaster.
I mean, this is all Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. If they wanted to wear loincloths, Rutgers was going to. I mean, I don't know. There's not. Let's not think too much into this, and that's what's happening here. Clearly, it's just. I think obviously Adidas was upset about that, and that's how this came to a head. Again, I don't have any inside information. I'm just connecting the dots here. The two best players, again, like you mentioned in Rutgers history, wanted to wear Nike. And I will add this too: the football coach wants to wear Nike. So I don't, I get it. Those two guys are leaving before this gets all hammered out, I'm sure. But the football coach still has a lot of influence here. I would be stunned if this does not come back around and Rutgers is a Nike school. It could be completely wrong, but I certainly don't see it go back to Adidas. Can you imagine that? I mean, who else is left? New Balance?
Yeah. New Balance.
Like, what is that?
Nice,
Puma?
maybe for the track team.
Yeah.
Why
Asics? They're nice shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering
wide size.
How important this story was as it was kind of developing, and now you kind of realize why it's so important. This is a lot of money that Rutgers brings in off this deal. Obviously, it's not just important because of the uniforms they're wearing, but the money is significant. It's an important contract, and like Brian said, and Steve about the players wearing Nike, it's a big deal long term. So, just here's three interesting points.
Sorry, anyone that has spoken to Dylan Harper, anybody that knows him for years now, would know that he wants to wear Nike. Right? I think he loves Nike. He loves Kobe's. Anyone who had a conversation with him knew that it was going down this road. And like you said, Steve, this is Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. They have all the leverage in the world. They could wear Under Armour on one shoe. They could wear Nike on another. They could wear whatever headband they want. They could wear whatever they want, right? Rutgers is not going to stop them. They have no leverage. You're going to tell Dylan Harper he can't wear Nikes. Dylan Harper will say, okay, I'm not going to play. And the whole thing falls apart, right? So from that standpoint, I think you had to have figured this out earlier. It just does not make sense to me that it took this long. And again, it might work out for Rutgers financially or whatever. Perception-wise, it is not a good look when everyone is wondering, Rutgers is an Adidas school. Their best players are wearing Nike. It looks like kind of things are out of control. And they might not be, but that's certainly the perception nationally. And,
yes.
A lot of times perception is reality.
It also sounds like, and I would have done this too. Again, there's no, like, if Pat Hobbs said, get him on campus, we'll figure it out. And then when it came time to figure it out, they figured him out, I think is the same way to say it, and left that little stink bomb for Ryan Passari and his staff to figure out. And look, this is certainly one way to figure it out. Look, you can't, whatever it takes, it's going to cost you some money at the end, but I mean, I think you're going to make some money back with those guys. I don't know. It's fascinating. But ultimately, I think we know where this is headed with Adidas and Nike. I could be wrong on that.
I'm curious about the negotiating power, right? So you're negotiating for a new contract. Does Rutgers have any leverage here? Are they going to be able to get a good deal?
I don't know.
I mean, there's to your point, I don't think Adidas is in this race. So your biggest competitor, if you're going for Nike, is out of the race. I don't think New Balance, or Puma, or these schools that are kind
Under
of
Armour, not done a shoe deal. So I don't know. Yeah, good point.
Are they going to want to be in a giant shootout with Nike? Is Nike even want to do this? Because the biggest benefit they're going to have is these two guys, and they're going to wear Nike already, even though Rutgers is not a Nike school. So, right, are you going to want to invest for the future when these two guys are clearly gone? I don't know what's going to work out. I will say, I believe this process will probably be figured out sooner rather than later. I think Rutgers might have a deal by the start of next month.
Do you really? Okay.
But I don't know if that means they'll start wearing their new outfitter during the basketball season, during the spring season, or if the new deal starts in July 1st, 2025. I don't know what that is. I know Rutgers obviously has their Adidas uniforms for basketball already. They wore them at the St. John's game, right? But I think it would be a bit of a logistical nightmare to switch those out with whatever new outfitter in time for the start of the season. I don't know how that's going to work out. But I think that there is a chance that by the season opener of basketball, there is a new deal hammered out with somebody.
The other basketball nugget, the Players Tournament has changed its format. What happened there?
This is like the worst AAU organized tournament at the college basketball level.
Even the Peach Jam gets it better, right? You're right. Great point, man.
It's unbelievable. So what happened is this. Rutgers was set to play Houston for the third game on Saturday, right? The theory of why they did what they did, they separated these teams into two separate brackets because apparently you're not allowed to play the teams from the same conference in these MTEs. NCAA rule, whatever. right? So that's why Oregon and Rutgers were in separate brackets. Now it works out that they're going to have these two brackets. They're going to play 2 games against each other on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then depending on the pecking order, they'll play a third game on Saturday against the other bracket. Now that sets up the possibility that Rutgers plays Oregon. So we did the whole thing in the beginning to avoid it, and now it's possible. It doesn't make any sense to me, but what will happen is that Rutgers will play Notre Dame Tuesday still. They will still play Alabama on Wednesday, and then Saturday they will play one of Texas, Creighton, San Diego State, or Oregon. And I think ideally it's one of those first 3. And that's a big drop-off from Houston, which I guess gives Rutgers a better chance of getting a win, but it takes away the chance of getting, a huge resume win against Houston.
Right. But it does also take away if you're sitting there 0-2 and you're playing Houston. Like, I mean, I guess that's one positive. If the wheels fall off, at least you have an opponent that's a little bit more manageable in the third game, right?
Yeah. Sure. But if you're 0-2, you might want to play Houston to kind of salvage the trip. I don't know. Whoever they play, yes, they'll have a better chance of winning on Saturday than they would have against Houston. No doubt about that.
All right. Let's move on to know your opponent here. USC. These are the easiest questions you're ever going to get, I think. Personally, I think you're both going to get them, especially the third one. I hope the third one. You guys ready? People know what we're doing at this point. I'm going to ask a couple of trivia questions, see what our panelists here know about Southern Cal. All right, ready? Here we go. Southern Cal has 8 Heisman Trophy winners, more than any other program. Which one of these great Southern Cal players did not win a Heisman Trophy? A. Carson Palmer. B. Marcus Allen. C. Lynn Swann. D. O.J. Simpson.
C.
You going C, Fonseca?
C.
Pat?
Was C Lynn Swann?
It was.
Yeah, let's go with Lynn Swann.
You got it. Wow, good one. Swan never even in the top 10. How about that?
Yeah.
I was surprised by that. All right, good one. All right. Speaking of great receivers in Southern Cal history, the receiver with the most touchdown receptions in U.S. history is not Lynn Swann. Who is it? A. Keyshawn Johnson. B. Mike Williams. C. Juju Smith-Schuster. Or D. Dwayne Jarrett. he knows.
You threw that in there. You threw that in there to trick me. You threw it in there. I'm going to go with Dwayne Jarrett anyway.
I'll go with C only because I think they've been throwing the ball more often in modern times as opposed to Keyshawn Johnson. To me, seems like the obvious answer, but I'll go with C because it's more recent.
It is Dwayne Jarrett. I threw it in there just to ask New Brunswick's own. I was wondering where he would be, and he's like second yards too. I mean, they were pretty prolific back then. This is, he won a national championship in 2004, their last national championship. Where's Dwayne Jarrett now? Do we know? Is he kind of
great question. Never had the NFL career that a lot of people expected, but obviously a New Jersey football legend.
All right, this little twist here for the third question. Little twist. Fight On is the greatest fight song in the Big Ten now because it is the greatest fight song in college football, in my humble opinion. Can you hum some bars of Fight On for me?
I can't.
I can't either.
Really?
No.
Nothing? Not even a little bit?
No.
Not even a little dun, 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 dun. Come on, man. Dun, 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 dun.
I did know this. Fonz did it. Yeah, that should be a half point.
Sponsored by the Eldridge.
Get this guy out of here. Get this guy out of here.
I could sing fight songs for 38 minutes and you'll still elect me podcast president. It's great. Come on. We're going to hear that a couple times. I can't believe you guys don't know the fight song.
Yeah, I don't know it. I don't know.
Can you hum? I'm going to stop.
I can hum Rocky Top.
That's got to be in the top 5 fight song. I think it's a fight song at this point, right? It's got to be.
I don't think it's a fight song, but it's my favorite. I play it every time I go to a party. People know me as the Rocky Top guy. I love Rocky Top.
Really?
I swear.
You're playing like the original? You're playing the Dolly Parton version? You're playing like, which one are you playing? This is interesting.
The original. I play the original, and I also sometimes play Country Roads if it's really rowdy. So I do like Country Roads a lot.
Pat,
These
have you ever been to?
these Carney kids going home to West
Have you ever
Virginia.
been invited to a Fonseca party? Invited to a Fonseca
I
party?
don't throw parties. I attend parties. I'm not a big.
So you attend. Wait, you attend and you bring what you have on your phone, and you just hook up to the speaker, and you just blast out some Rocky Top, and you have it like in a.
People pass around their Spotify. Like, anyone want to queue up a song? Like, I'll queue up a song, and it'll be modern top hits, and all of a sudden, Rocky Top hits you across the face, and kind of turns things up.
That's great, man. That's good.
What was the great fight song of last year? I was so sick of it by the end.
Build Me Up Buttercup in Wisconsin.
That's not a fight song. Wisconsin's got a great fight song. Wisconsin's great. On Wisconsin.
Oh, Michigan. Hail to the victor. Oh my god.
That's got to be in the top 5. I got my top 5's got 15 fight songs though. There you go.
What's the one at Clemson? I like the one at Clemson.
Hold
I
the
know Cratch hated it.
Is that it? The Hold the Tiger? No,
I can't remember. Boomer Sooner. That's always good. You like Boomer Sooner?
Did you see the car crash last week?
It's mid. Did it really? No, I didn't see that. You have problems in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Not
Not good.
Does it crash every week or every year? I should say.
Seems like it.
All right, let's do our picks now. Then we got some. We're going to wrap up with we got some extra questions this week, which is good. We all freaking miffed on last. I mean, good grief, we looked.
I covered.
You did cover. It's a good point. You did cover. Yeah, you did. You could have gone. You could have really caught up, right? Now you're still a game behind. You tied. We all tied now. What's the
I think
standings?
I'm one back.
All right.
Yeah, Pat's still one back. You and I are still tied, believe.
All right. I'll go first. Not liking the matchup. I said it on the last podcast. I think it's a tough one. I thought it was a tough one before the defense essentially disappeared because of injuries or whatever you want to. I mean, I thought it was a tough matchup for Rutgers to cover those receivers. I think it's a tough matchup on the road. I think it's 11 p.m. So many things. I just don't see it. I didn't see it. I thought this was going to be the hardest one to begin with. Still, I don't care that Southern Cal is 3-4. I think it's going to be a blowout, 45-20 loss for Rutgers.
Pat, you want to go?
Listen, I on the last podcast, I almost talked myself into Rutgers winning this game. I needed to get my own reality check here. Went back, watched a little bit of USC Maryland, and USC is so good, so fast that this is a matchup nightmare for Rutgers defensively, especially with what they showed last week. The speed, it's all over the field. Those receivers are unbelievable. Miller Moss, I can't even fathom that was a conversation happening in the media this week that he should be on the bench. Still a great team, just failing to execute in critical moments. So I don't think there will be many of those in this game. I'm right there with Politi. I think this is going to be a really tough game for Rutgers. Can't see this one being close either. Go USC 35, Rutgers 7.
Wow. Okay. 13.5 was the line, by the way. Just to be clear. Okay.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree. USC is more talented. They've been bad on the road, but they've been pretty much perfect at home outside of a 3-point loss to a top 5 Penn State team. They came back from a huge deficit to beat Wisconsin at home. They're going to be desperate, right? Like, this is kind of the, where the whatever meets the road, rubber meets the road. I'm horrible with analogies on this podcast. I always forget what they are. But essentially, this is the moment where USC kind of has to, nut up or shut up. And I think they'll nut up. And I think the talent discrepancy will just be very evident. And it doesn't help that it's an 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff time, which is a lot harder, I think, than a 9 a.m. Pacific time for UCLA last week. So I'll go, I think Rutgers will keep it close early. This is kind of their season here too, right? But I think USC will pull away ultimately. I'll go USC 31, Rutgers 13.
All right. Not a lot of positivity here on we called our shot. And we don't like Rutgers in this game. So it'll be 4-4 if we are correct coming back for 4-game stretch. That will determine which direction this program's heading. So, but if they steal this one, it does change the trajectory of the season. And clearly, other teams have done that. So we'll see if Rutgers can. All right. We've got some questions. I asked for last minute questions. And you guys had good ones. And one that we didn't talk about this at all in the last episode. Someone just put in all caps. What was in Hobbs's phone? Which I thought was great. Someone else asked about, you never talked about your Hobbs story the other day. How realistic was the plan to replace the rack? All right. So if you guys didn't read our Hobbs story, kind of breaking down what happened at the end with Pat Hobbs, I think answers, I don't know, if not all the questions, certainly many of the questions. I don't think it makes much sense for us to recap. Like, we'll let the reporting stand for itself. But I do think the stuff about the rack was very interesting, Brian. And this is like, to give you a backstory, sometimes when you're reporting a story like this, when you're digging around, trying to find information on one thing, you found information on something else. And that's what happened here. We're talking to people about Pat Hobbs and what happened when asking about the gymnastics program. And a couple of people said, well, last time I talked to him, he wanted to replace the rack. And I didn't believe it at first. I was like, that doesn't sound, it doesn't make any sense. Why replace the rack? I heard want to renovate the rack, but replace it. And it turns out, no, he's meeting with architects, going over plans, fundraisers, right, Brian? I mean, and we opened the information, and sure enough, there's just a lot of stuff there, a paper trail about his plans to get rid of the rack.
Yeah, look, he was in Kansas City meeting with an architecture firm, him and sports administrator Mike Zool. And on the same trip, they had 2 separate meals with people, high-level executives at Goldman Sachs who deal in the global sports investment division, including one woman, Stacey Sonnenberg, who played a part in the funding for Yankee Stadium, for MetLife Stadium, for Camp Nou, for Barcelona's new stadium, Camp Nou, for the new Tennessee Titans Stadium that's going to be open in 2027. So clearly this is someone who has a major role in major projects of new buildings, right? So I guess it could be a massive coincidence. Goldman Sachs declined comment to us, but I think it kind of shows that he was trying to replace the rack, which is, I think if that plan ever came to fruition, there would be a revolt similar to or even crazier than the Greg Schiano saga, because people love the rack and they would be pissed if they try to take even as reporting it has people getting all fired up about it.
Yeah, it is interesting. To me, it sums up, very few things sum up Pat Hobbs more than that to me. And part of it's good. And I mean that sincerely. Like, here's a guy who is willing to try to do something difficult. I mean, remember Julie Herman, just before you guys time on the beat, but she's like, we can't do anything here. Like, that was the message she gave to the core club, and people were like, oh, okay, can we get like a hot dog or something? But no, I mean, this is to his credit, an ambitious thing. He thought of it as his legacy, and he believed he could pull it off. That said, the other side of it is, here's a guy once again doing something that the people did not want. Like, same with Schiano. Like, imagine how easy his tenure would have been had he just gone, all right, people want to rehire Greg Schiano. I'm the athletic director. Let's get that done, as opposed to fighting it every step of the way. It's just kind of a fascinating thing. Like, someone who, Pat Hobbs, has got a very big ego, believed that he could, that his decision on this was right. I think his basketball coach disagrees with it. I mean, I think Steve Michael, do you want to replace the rack? And then Chris Palladino had a great quote. Like, the only people who want to replace the rack are opposing Big Ten coaches. And for that reason, I do think this project dies with him. I could be wrong, but I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, it seems that way. Yep.
All right. On a lighter note, Dave from Basking Ridge wants to know, why does Calic Manis chew his mouthpiece? If he needs something to chew, I suggest a stick of gum. Thanks, Dave. Dave from Basking Ridge is offering advice to the quarterback. I didn't notice this, but apparently this is like, you guys had noticed this a long time ago.
I've noticed it watching the film reviews, and I've just never, when we talk to him weekly on Tuesdays, I've just never thought to ask him. But so when they snap the ball, I would think guys take their mouthpieces out of their mouths in between plays, put them back in for the plays. But during the plays, they snap him the ball, and there are some TV replays where the mouth guard's hanging out of his mouth like this, like at an angle, and like Steph Curry-esque. I don't know why. Maybe it's a habit, nervous tick, whatever it is. But it certainly is not fulfilling its job as a mouth guard if he's chewing it outside during a play.
I've never noticed. I've never noticed.
Oral fixation. A tough question. Tough question to ask Ethan. Ethan, for 350 yards today. But about your mouthpiece, I don't know. We don't know. Good question though. Another good one. I love this. Josh from Westfield wants to know about Brian and Greg Schiano's budding press conference romance. And I did notice that it seems a little moment after the end of the press conference, Pat, I wasn't there, but you know,
there was a nice after the grandma story.
Tell us the grandma story for people who don't know that, first of all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. It was in response to why USC can't close out games, right? And that there are two teams on the field and one team's going to lose was ultimately his answer.
I believe so.
And
I believe that was the question.
His grandma, soothed him and explained to him, Gregory, the teams that you root for are going to lose and you're just going to have to deal with it. So it was a really, really interesting answer. And then afterwards, as he's walking out of the tennis house where because the week is short, it's a different setup. So Brian just kind of goes, hey, Greg, I still cry when my teams lose too. And he starts cracking up and then they do a little fist bump. Nice little magic moment for you.
He did say, so I said, he said he was crying when he was a kid when his teams lost. So I said, Greg, I still cry when my favorite teams lose, which is true. When Sporting loses a game, I get a little upset. So Greg said, oh, so you cried on Saturday. Implying, I guess, that I'm a Rutgers homer, which clearly anyone who reads our work knows that I am a huge Rutgers homer. I have my Rutgers photo over there from when I graduated in 2018. So I clearly am a Rutgers homer. But then we fist bumped and but yes, I mean, listen, I'm glad other people have noticed too. I have felt that Greg Schiano's answers to my questions have been a little different than questions asked by others, but maybe it's because I asked different questions than others. So it's just kind of the deal. It is the way it is. It's fine.
I have this vision of grandma pulling a young Greg Schiano aside, sitting him down. Sometimes your teams are going to lose, and never go for two with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. Come on. Don't chase points, young Greg. Oh, grandma told me not to do it. I did it anyway. Oh, that was too easy. Sorry, Greg.
Grandma didn't have the chart.
Yeah, that's your grandma.
I wonder if it is an Italian grandma, right? Like,
could be, you would think, right? Yeah,
it's great.
She's making some gravy and teaching them game management. All right. Other questions? A lot of people want to know the favorite to be the new apparel. Do you have any? I mean, we were playing around earlier, but is it going to be Nike? Several people want to know what clothes are going to be worn. I mean,
I'd be surprised if it wasn't Nike, right? I guess it could be Puma or New Balance, or I don't know who the RFPs have been sent out to. I've done the Oprah request, obviously, once I learned about it. But again, the entire 98% of college sports teams are Nike or Adidas. I don't think Adidas is coming back, so you guys can kind of do the math there.
Right. This one's good. Probably a question for the new homer, Pat Lanny. What is the single most important thing Rutgers needs to do on defense to beat USC, and can they realistically do it?
It's match USC speed, which is just not capable, in my opinion. If it's not that, it's going to have to be creating turnovers by bringing pressure, which Rutgers doesn't, or create pressure, which Rutgers hasn't all season, or force some sort of game-changing plays with takeaways, which Rutgers, to its credit, has sort of done this season. So I would say the biggest mismatch is just, like I said earlier, the speed, and that's not a good thing for Rutgers going to Cal or something.
This is what happened in those other games when they would play, Ohio State or play these other good teams. Is that it would be one thing you could stop them for on one drive, but then they score and on a 13-second drive. They score quickly, and then the game's out of hand. Yeah.
Or the other aspect of it, Rutgers would be outmatched from a physical standpoint against a Wisconsin, and just not able to match physicality. But Rutgers last year was more physical, in my opinion, than some of these great Big Ten teams like Michigan and Ohio State. So I would like to see some of that physicality back personally.
Mm-hmm. Good point. 2 questions from James, the frustrated fan, all caps. With all these injuries that have mounted up, is it possible that Schiano has overworked this team in the summer to the point where their bodies can't hold up for the season? I don't know. What do you think?
Ask Brian what he thinks of that answer, or that question, if he has an answer for that one.
I asked Greg if the injuries were just football or if it was something he has to look into for strength and conditioning, the medical staff, any other aspects. And Greg taught me a lesson that I wasn't sure I knew. He said that football is a game played between very, very big guys, and they go very, very fast and hit each other. And sometimes that leads to injury. So that doesn't answer the question of if it happened in training camp or not, but now you know how injuries happen, and that's kind of what happened to Rutgers this season.
Alrighty then. But I do love I don't know if it's a bromance, Pat. I'm not sure that's the word I would use. But it's like a disapproving dad trying not to completely lose his son. A little back and forth, the repertoire. Gosh. And the other question that James, the frustrated fan, had, it's been 5 years. Why is it after all this time that we're still having depth issues after this many recruiting cycles and pretty decent recruiting classes? I guess that's interesting because, Greg Shannon has recruited well based on all of the recruiting experts. And there have been some positions, especially that you wonder, like, all right, did those players not develop? Are they recruiting misses? Are they just not through the pipeline yet? They're still halfway through. They're still churning out. I don't know. It's an issue.
I think that's a good point. Halfway through the pipeline, not fully developed. And then I think it's too many injuries at once. I think this team probably has enough depth to withstand some injuries, but like on Saturday, you're down 2 tight ends, you're down both defensive ends, you're down 1 starting linebacker and the other's hurt. You're down, your quarterbacks are both banged up. Your star running back is, decimated, right? He's playing, but he's clearly banged up. So it's a lot to overcome. And then you're playing young guys. Kosh Sanders is a true freshman who's playing a lot of snaps. Bo Mascow's in his first season, really, because he didn't play at all last year. Daryl Jabomi is playing probably a year ahead of schedule. Moses Walker's in his second year of playing. It's just a lot happening at once that you could probably overcome 1, 2, maybe 3 injuries. This is a lot. I will say, though, Taj White, I wrote about it this morning. He was rough in his first game at left guard, but he's gotten better the last couple games. So I guess there is encouragement that this could happen, but you don't have a Super Bowl winning assistant coach coaching at every position. So we'll see.
All right. Anything else, fellas, before we get on the plane, head out there? Team's already heading out there. Before we get out there and join the team. No?
I will say I put out our wrestling preview today. So there's some good stuff there. Just about, like I said on our last episode about Rutgers wanting to be a top 10 program. I went weight by weight, previewing the lineup. Some really good stats in there. So I won't dive into all of it, but I will encourage you to read it if you're a big wrestling fan, because there were some really great comments. All the wrestlers said some good things. And I think I know Rutgers will face 5 top 10 teams this year, 2 out of conference and 3 in the Big Ten. And it has a chance legitimately to be competitive or win 4 of them. Obviously, it's not going to be Penn State, but the rest are winnable. So it starts with NC State at a dual meet in Toms River at what used to be the Ritaco Center on the campus of Toms River North. So if you're looking for a great wrestling event to get to, bookmark that one. It's the day after the Maryland game, football. So Maryland on Saturday, and then Rutgers wrestling in Toms River on Sunday against North Carolina State. It's going to be really good.
Awesome. All right.
Well, one thing I want to say is if you guys have any recommendations for Los Angeles, this is my first time personally, and there's a lot to do in Los Angeles. So any recommendations, hit us on the nj.com/text line, and I'll be sure to read through all of them.
Nice. Yeah, my only recommendation is my feet in the Pacific Ocean on Friday afternoon. That's where I'll be if you need me. Until then, we'll be back on Monday to recap the game. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.